Good morning, everyone. This is Jackie Hanselman, and I wanted to give everyone an update about my progress since I had my back surgery. And as Dan and I have looked over this whole year, because it's been a year since I went to the doctor at the end of May, and I began this whole journey. In the beginning, in March, I had noticed that my bladder was asleep. And that's how I described it. My bladder was sleeping. And I would go to my chiropractor, and my chiropractor would do some adjustments on my body and wake it up, and it would stay awake for a couple of weeks. And then I'd come back, and the time between her having to wake it up just got shorter and shorter and shorter. And then finally, Dr. Day, who's this amazing chiropractor in Wilkesboro, she said to me, Jackie, this is neurological, and you need to go see your doctor. And I went to my internist, and he sent me for x-rays, and then he got me an appointment with the urologist at the end of summer. And when I went to see the urologist, she ended up scheduling me to have a urine dynamic test. And at this place is where Dan and I ended up getting COVID. Dan got COVID, and then I got COVID. And after we recuperated from that, because her prognosis when she saw me after the urine dynamic test is she said, you have an atonal bladder, which means my bladder wasn't working. And the nerves in my bowel weren't working. So what she said to me was that I had to cath 4 times a day. Well, so first it starts with the malfunction of a major organ. But I was misdirected with the solution. Her solution was cathing 4 times a day. And everything in me just screamed against that, because it was going to, 4 times a day, I would have to do a daily intervention with major life disruption and serious limitations. I just couldn't do it. And I thank God that I didn't have to do it. With that, I took the trip to Mexico, in which they found a way to treat it with I used the TENS unit on my peripheral nerves on my ankle and the back of my leg, and it worked. But every day for a half hour, when I got up, I'd have to do that. I was taking a medication, Flomax, and I had to do that. If I didn't do it the next day, I would struggle. So I received fake news in Mexico. They did an MRI on my back, and their report back was that my back was fine. So fake news, misdirection. I wanted you to see the misdirection of the enemy. So everything was a mystery then. What was causing the difficulty? Now I had to do further pursuit to find the cause. My urologist refused to see me again unless I saw a neurologist. When I saw the neurologist, he did a pretty good history on me. But what he said to me is, he said, Jackie, I really don't understand what's going on with your body, because I had the MRI from Mexico for him. So you can see the misdirection. And he said, he asked if anything, physical had happened in my life. And I said, in 2018, I had a severe viral infection that infected everywhere in my body. And he said, there's a syndrome where it can attack the nerves in the pelvis. And if this is what's happened, it's permanent damage. Now, he said that, but I did not receive that. And this man chewed. It was an interesting, I watched him because I had really prayed about this neurology appointment that he would have wisdom, because he wasn't going to do anything. And I was watching him chew. That's when someone sits there and you can tell in their eyes, they're weighing all the possible, objectives, how they can do this, what they need to do. And he finally said, I think I'm not really willing to do a lot of testing on you, but I think we do need to schedule an MRI with contrast. Now, so that point where he said, this could be permanent damage, it was the enemy's purpose for me to lose hope. Then I got the news after the spinal contrast that I had severe spinal stenosis. And that shook me because I looked it up to see what it was all about. And one of the signs of severe spinal stenosis is bladder and bowel problems. So that day, I did a lot of research on what would my options. And I found this man, Don Korek, in the Carolina Spinal Institute online. And he was doing YouTubes about all of the incredible ways they were treating spine dysfunction at this institute. So that night I got together with the Lord. I couldn't sleep. And I do what I do. Now, I don't know if other people do this. When I have something that is really, really bothering me, it's personal, can be emotional with relationships, whatever it is. I get together with the Lord and I wrestle with the Lord. And when I say I wrestle with the Lord, I confess my fears. I confess my concerns. I confess that I don't know what to do. What does He want me to do? And as I did that, He reminded me when I had macular pucker surgery in 2011 that He got me one of the best retinal surgeons in Southern California. And when Dan and I went to see that surgeon, his words to me were, and my macular, it's supposed to be like a dimple, almost like your lips where you've got the dimple in the center and it comes down, so that rounded. And he said, you'll either get your vision back, or you'll lose the distortion, or you'll get bad. My vision was so distorted, I could not drive. And the end result was I got both back. So God was very good. He reminded me of that. And He said, make an appointment with Don Korek, which is the man I'd been watching on YouTube. So I was like, okay. And I made my appointment. But it took 7 weeks to get to see this man. And I went to him and he said, you don't have any of the symptoms of severe spinal stenosis. You're supposed to have numbness in your leg and you're supposed to be in a great deal of pain. And it's very difficult to walk, stand, or sit. And I'm like, but he did keep saying that everybody's body's different. And he didn't know if the surgery would help my spine, would help my bladder and bowel issue. So I wasn't moved by what he said. And I turned to him and I said, well, you know, I was diagnosed with this in 2005, and the Lord has sustained me for 17 years. And at that point in time, they told me I would need major pain meds to function. Now, I have had seasons where the pain was so severe, I used pain meds. But God would always deliver me out of those places of pain. So when I said, I've been sustained by prayer, and he said, well, you can't argue with the big man upstairs. And I found that was very encouraging to me. I did not find it disrespectful. It was like he recognized that when God's in the picture, things are not going to be the way they should be. So then I also told him I had gone on a course of prednisone when I had the severe sinus infection. And I said, you know, it's real interesting. On the prednisone, I had normal flow. And he said, well, you've got two options. One, you can come in and get shots in your back of prednisone. And I knew I didn't want that because I knew prednisone is very bad for your body long-term. Or you can have the surgery. And he described the surgery. He described the, you know, it's like a 1%, 2% problem outcome where they might nick a nerve and you could have paralysis. And he went through it all. And then he's sitting there and he goes, what do you want to do? And inside, the Lord's reminding me, remember the doctor in California, in Palm Desert. So I called Dan and I asked what he wanted, and he does what he always does. I don't know if you realize that he'll just say, sure. So he told me when I agreed to surgery, he said, my scheduler will call you to schedule an appointment. It will be 4 to 6 weeks out. And I left and came home. Now, the miracle was the scheduler called me on that Thursday, which was a couple days before Memorial Weekend. I wasn't home. I called on Friday. She wasn't at the office. I called Tuesday morning, twice on Tuesday. Couldn't get through to her. She calls me at 3 o'clock as I'm coming up the mountain on my phone. I have to understand, cell phone coverage on the mountain is not good. And she said to me, we have a cancellation. We have a person who's rescheduled their appointment. And do you want it? And it was for the following Tuesday. Now, because we're going to Jamaica, I needed as much recuperation time because it takes up to 2 to 2.5 months to recuperate from the surgery fully. So I took the surgery. It was, I can't tell you, that night my flow began. I found out afterwards as I read through my surgical notes and what they send you home from the hospital, not the hospital, his clinic, because it was outpatient, that they had put a steroid on my nerves, in my back, my spinal cord. And for 7 days, it was so incredibly normal. And then it started getting a little more difficult. And I'd started taking an essential oil, and it was for swelling and inflammation. And when it got difficult, and I'm not using the TENS unit at all now. When it got difficult, the Lord said to me, I said, Lord, what's going on? He said, continue taking the COPABAI or something like that. Copabaya, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Copaiba.
You say it, please.
Copaiba.
Copaiba. Continue taking it twice a day. So yesterday, I chose not to take the Tamsuline, and everything is still working fine. So I want to point out the important things here. One was misdirected solution. Now the solution was to cath, but I wouldn't accept that. Second misdirection was the MRI without contrast, where and I'm going to tell you, my back is, I've got a perfect curve. God healed my back, but that one point. And that was a misdirection, because then I really didn't know. Everything became a mystery. And then when the neurologist gave me the report, it could be permanent. I don't think I even told Dan. Did I tell you, Dan, that? Okay, I did. It's not something I lingered on at all. It's not something I meditated on. I did not give it weight. And then even with the doctor's inclination was to do nothing. He would offer me the prednisone. But when I told him that prednisone had helped with the flow, then he was willing. And now I have my victory and I have my restoration. And because it was blocking my spinal fluid, the pump action of my brain to get my brain and the spinal fluid up and down in my back, I'm having energy like I haven't had. And yesterday, I even did some processing of some squash and pumpkin we had from last fall that I haven't been able to touch or even look at. So I want to thank all of you for your prayers. I want to thank you that you stood with me during this season. And I want to also encourage you not to stop, not to accept, not to embrace the diagnosis that you receive, not to embrace the major life limitations, because God is bigger and God will get to the root of the issue. So I bless you in Jesus' name.